Hello everybody and welcome to a new video. Today is the last day of March, so I thought I would give you guys a little bit of a wrap up of everything that I read in March and also maybe figure out my TBR for April. I'm going to start off by giving you some statistics for March. So I read 5 books and I read about 1,374 pages. It took me about 8 days to finish a book, and I read 25% non-fiction and 75% fiction. I read only print books, I didn't read on my Kindle this month, and I read 1 German book and 4 English books. My average rating was 4.38 out of 5 stars. But I also didn't rate one of those books because it's non-fiction. So yeah, those were like the statistics of March. And now I'm going to start off by telling you about all of the books that I read. It's honestly kind of a random pile of books, I'm not gonna lie. But I read some really good books, so I definitely liked March. March was a good reading month. Also 5 books is solid. So yeah, the first one I actually finished in March. I finished this on the 1st of March, so it would technically count into February, but I don't care. Was The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston, and I really liked this one. It was a really good vibe, and it's set in New York City, which was really fun. It's about a girl who moves into her aunt's apartment, I think, and the apartment can like move in time basically, and it's kind of a romance and it's really fun and a really good time. So if you haven't read it, I would definitely recommend. It's like a really good vibe. So I think I rated it like 4 stars or something. Like, it was a solid, good, fun book. The next one that I read was Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. If you watched my video where my dog decides what I read, you will definitely know this book. I really love this book. This is so good. It 100% deserves the hype. It's so good. The story is so amazing. The plot is crazy. The characters, I love the characters. It's so good. It's about a girl named Evangeline, and she makes a deal with a fate, and then that's basically like the beginning of the story, and then everything just moves on from there, and it's so good. And so I loved it. Definitely would 100% recommend. This was 5 stars easily. Now the next book I read is kind of random, but I read Beneath the Surface by John Hargrove because I have an essay for school that I'm going to write, and I did some research, so I read this book for my research. John Hargrove, the author of this book, was a trainer at SeaWorld, and he basically talks about everything concerning that whole entire topic, and he was like an orca trainer, so it was really interesting to read about his perspective on things. If you're interested in anything like this, I would definitely recommend reading it. It's still really interesting to me, and orcas are my favorite animals, so I'm really interested in that whole topic, and it was definitely very interesting. I also tabbed a lot of stuff because, as I said, it's for school kind of. I would definitely recommend it. It's really interesting, and not just that whole aspect, also just following this author or this trainer throughout his life was really interesting to me, and I really enjoyed reading this one. It took me really long to read though, because I read Once Upon a Broken Heart while reading this, so I read this for over 2 weeks, which is kind of crazy because I usually read books in like a week, but it's okay. It was still very interesting. Now the next book that I read was The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber, which is the second book of the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. And this one was also really, really good. I'm not going to tell you what this one is about because then I would kind of spoil the first book, so definitely would recommend as well. I liked it just a little bit less than the first one, just a teeny tiny bit, because I felt a little bit disconnected at some times, which was probably just my reading experience because it doesn't really make any sense. But also I felt like I was in a little bit of a reading slump, I don't know why, so maybe that was the reason, but I still rated it like 4.75 stars because it was really, really good. The story was great, the characters were great, like the plot twists were so good. And also a thing that is so amazing about this author is that she doesn't have a single page in her book that is boring. I don't know how she does it, but everything is interesting at all times. So I would also definitely recommend this book. This series in general, I haven't read the last one yet, but this is definitely must read. And the last book I read this month was The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I don't know how to speak French or how to pronounce that name, but we'll just have to deal with it. I read the German version of it because we had it at home, but it isn't really a big difference, I think. This has like the craziest water damage. It's not even funny, but that's okay. So this book is about a pilot who crash lands in the desert, and then he meets this strange little boy who's the little prince. And it was honestly, I mean, technically it's a children's book, but it was really fun and also kind of interesting because it has like a lot of like philosophical elements to it, I guess. But if you're looking for a fun little time, nothing too crazy, because as I said, it's technically a children's book, I would definitely recommend this. It was kind of fun and a little bit silly. This was actually really fun for me to read because I was in like a theater group and we actually played The Little Prince once, so it was really fun to relive that kind of because I forgot everything that happened. But I would definitely recommend this if you're just looking for a fun little book. And yeah, that's kind of everything that I read in March. I would definitely recommend all of these books. They were all great. So if you're looking for good books, choose one of these. But now we can figure out what I want to read in April because I actually don't know yet. So let's figure that out.
A few moments later.
Okay, I think I figured out what to read in April, or next basically. It's kind of a pretty pile. I mean, if you look at this, it's a pretty stack of books. I guess I'm just going to tell you what I might read. Honestly, I'm very much a mood reader, so this might not be what I actually end up reading, but this is kind of what I can see myself reading, so I guess we'll just start off. The most obvious is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber, which is the third book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. I would love to get to this month. I don't know how she does it, but these covers are so cute. I can't even. So I would love to get to this one this month. Then the next one I have is Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood, because I read The Love Hypothesis last year and I really liked it, so I got this one a couple of months ago and I think this might be very fun to read. Then I am probably going to read Die Ratten. I don't know who wrote it because I have to read it for German, which I'm totally excited about. Not, but that's okay. Then the next book I would like to read is Der traurigste Himmel auf Erden by Malte Zierden. This is a German influencer kind of, and he fights for animals' rights and saves a lot of animals out of like war zones, kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but if you're German you might have heard of him. And he wrote a book, so I would like to read this because I think he talks about how he came to being an activist, kind of, so would like to get to this one. The last one is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I honestly don't know a lot about this book. I just saw it over the last couple of years and I was always a little bit intrigued because I also know it's like an interconnected standalone series, so would like to get to this one. That's kind of my TBR, which is kind of random, but I think it could be really fun. That was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you did, maybe like, comment, or subscribe. I would really appreciate it. If you want to, you can also follow me on TikTok or Instagram. And yeah, bye!